Welcome to Conscious Compassion, hosted by Charles Gray
and Laura Darrell. This podcast will share stories of the different ways that people deal with low moments in their lives.
How they manifest the drive to overcome obstacles and keep pushing forward. A fluid space with media, poetry, music, literary readings, or just plain storytelling.
Coupled with in-depth interviews of the storytellers so that listeners can learn, relate, and be inspired.
Spend a moment with us as we explore creative coping strategies for these chaotic times. Conscious Compassion,
where we share because we care.
Welcome to Conscious Compassion. I'm Charles Gray.
And I'm Laura Darrell.
And today we have the distinct pleasure to speak with Sarah Spadafina. I'm going to claim her as family.
Welcome,
most
Sarah.
definitely.
We were
Thank you.
We were actually claimed, is what it is. Her parents are dear friends of my husband, and I don't know. Over the course of years, we have all just become family. So it's been a beautiful thing, and I've gotten to watch her partially grow up. She was already a woman by the time I met her, but I've gotten to watch the evolution from student to bona fide Dr. MD. So this is very exciting, and we're really, really happy to have you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming on. So, Sarah, why don't you give us basically like a short version of
your
what life was like. Yeah, well, I'm just thinking like life prior, like directly prior, because, you know, Lord, you've traveled, your wife, mother, all these things. We'd be here forever if we went through all of that. So if you can like kind of encapsulate what your life was like directly before events. So we just get a sense of that and then lead us into the situation.
Sure. And as Charles has said, I am a physician. I'm a family medicine physician, also board certified in obesity medicine. So I had recently joined, actually February of 2020. I had recently started with a new practice at Northwell Health Physician Partners, which I made the decision to start there based on it was an easier commute. It's a nice 9-minute drive from my home. I have a 3.5. Oh, it's beautiful. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, so It was nice to have a nicer way to get to her. Her school is only 15 minutes away. And it was just a much better fit than my previous office. So, you know, I was just much happier there. And then, as we all know what happened in March, and then the pandemic hit, which, you know, it was obviously a difficult thing just because Northwell has been on the forefront of a lot of what's been going on with COVID, you know, whether it's been the testing, getting more testing out. We were the ones that started the first testing in upstate New York, and becoming widespread. We also were the first people in the United States to start giving the vaccination. One of our nurses was actually on television with the first COVID vaccine. So in general, it was nice to have started there as opposed to anywhere else, because I knew they would have more protection, that I would be in good hands during that time. It's just unfortunate that I started there. I was a newbie there only a month prior to everything kind of going, you know, haywire.
Understood.
You were quite busy.
So I was quite busy, yes. You know, and then between that was in person. And then I had also started a telemedicine position as well with Babylon Health. And they actually were they're an international company, which actually was a blessing in disguise that I had started with them, because now every single medical site is doing telemedicine. So I actually was able to get my feet wet before being thrown in with the whole COVID pandemic.
What do you think about telemedicine, just quickly? I know a lot of people have a reluctance, or a lot of people find it very convenient. Other people find it to be somewhat isolating, and, you know, they prefer in person. How do you feel about it?
I think it's great for certain things. To gain better access, for psychiatric reasons, for therapy. It's great, when some people can't come in. I also have some patients that may be immobile. They have transportation issues. So that it is nice to have that access. Obviously, there are some things that cannot be done through a video chat.
Right.
And we triage the patient. So if I have somebody who's coming in, let's say, who's very well controlled, who's coming in for their depression medication, anxiety medication, or they have, let's say, an upper respiratory infection, things that I can visualize on the video, or at least get them to do their own exam, then it works out really well. If you're having chest pain, or if you're short of breath, or you're having abdominal issues, then obviously it's something that I need to have you come into the office, because there's just some things that my hands need to be able to touch and feel in order to make an appropriate diagnosis. Right. So yes, it has its drawbacks, but it definitely has its benefits, because otherwise there was going to be so many patients, especially during the pandemic, that were too afraid to come out and get the medical care that they need. Right. And now we can access them from home.
How do you feel, though, as a doctor? I know I have a doctor in the family, and I haven't spoken to him in depth about it, but I feel like something that he's not complained about, but just mentioned in passing, is the sort of on-call all the time and the higher expectations now that there's that you're always there and you can always be reached and you should always be responding. And so do you find that you can set work aside and step away, or do you feel like you're now always connected?
So I feel like that's always an issue, unfortunately. Especially in the outpatient world. And I think that's more just all the technology, not so much with just telemedicine, because when we do our telemedicine, especially in my office, I don't know how it is in other offices, it's during your set office hours. So if I'm in my office from 8 to 6, you can get a telehealth appointment from 8 to 6. I'm not doing it. We don't do it after hours.
Okay.
But speaking of what your friend was maybe complaining about is, everybody has access to their medical records now. Everybody has access to their labs, and everything is instantaneous at this time. So, for example, if I do somebody's physical exam, today's Friday, I did a physical exam this morning, I drew blood. The blood work might come in and go straight to their portal this weekend. I'm not going to be looking at the blood work this weekend, but patients sometimes assume that we're always on, we're always looking. So by Monday, I might have a slew of messages in my inbox stating, oh, well, this was abnormal. How come nobody called me? How come nobody's called me to review this? So it has become an issue. And we've had to put some boundaries on patients, making them understand that, no, just because it becomes available to you does not mean that we're instantaneously going to check it and respond to you on a Sunday evening. It will still be responded to during office hours.
Right.
Makes
That's
sense.
good. Then I'm glad you're doing that, because, before they just wouldn't have gotten it that fast.
Right.
So just stay calm, carry on.
But she's still she's a vital source, because I will tell you that both Paul and I had COVID at the same time, and we were out of our depth because we were in a new town. We didn't know anybody. We hadn't changed doctors, and our doctor was like an hour and a half away. And Sarah came to the rescue.
As much as I could, yeah.
You did, doll. You did. So, just the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you tells me you did a great job.
I'm glad.
Wow, that was scary. So, moving on.
Yes. So with everything, being busy, as Laura mentioned, getting into a new job, unfortunately, tragedy struck my family. So March 27th, going back a little bit, my grandfather, who was 85 at the time, had been in and out of the hospital, for over a year. At one point, he was put on hospice, nothing to the point where we knew anything was imminent, but he had been diagnosed with end-stage heart failure. So we knew at some point, it was coming. And he had been in and out of the hospital a couple of times, and even a couple of times in the weeks previous to him passing away. I would say January, February, and each time he would go in, get better, he'd come out, but within a couple of weeks, he'd be right back in. So the week of, I would say probably like his passing occurred March 27th, which was a Friday. So I would say probably that weekend, Saturday or Sunday, my grandmother called me, stating, that he just felt tired, he felt short of breath, and he wanted to go to the hospital. And again, with COVID happening, we didn't know too much about COVID. It had only been announced maybe a few weeks prior to that. They were shutting down hospitals. They were shutting all the wards down. People couldn't go in with their spouses. People were dying alone. It was very scary.
Yeah.
So we were trying to keep him home for as long as possible. So I tried to get on the phone and convince him. I said, it's not the time to be in the hospital. So please tell me that you really need to go. What is going on? He's like, I just don't feel good. I just feel short of breath. But this was his chronic state. Mm-hmm. So I told my grandmother, I said, look, I'll take an extra dosage of, his particular medications. Let's call the visiting nurse service. Let's call the on-call doc that he has that was affiliated with the visiting nurse services. Let's see if we can get somebody to come out, listen to him, see if it is required for him to go in. So that we were able to do that. She was able to come out within 24 hours, listen to him. She felt that he was okay, but yes, he sounded like he had a little bit of fluid in his chest. So she said, okay, well, I agree. Let's take the extra medication, the water pill, see if we can flush him out. And then even with that, by the evening, he had felt a little bit better. But then the next morning, he was just saying, that's it, I'm done. I want to go to the hospital. And then the issue was my grandmother is also elderly. She's 83. So he was alone in the hospital. So she couldn't get back and forth to him. She wasn't allowed in because of COVID. So she was only communicating with him through telephone. She doesn't video chat. So, we had gotten calls. My mother and I were calling in to check on him, and he had been moved at one point to the ICU. They told us, well, we had to give him a sedative. But he's stable. And then at 4 o'clock in the morning on March 27th, I got a call from my mother that he had passed away. So, and then the thing, because of him being in the hospital, myself being a physician, I said, okay, well, I was planning to go down anyway. I said, maybe I'll bring my N95. I already had the full PPE gear to go and see him. But that obviously never came to fruition. So my trip down was now for, to plan the funeral. So, it was very early Friday morning. I called out of work. We started making plans to go down. My parents were able to get a flight that evening. And my husband and my daughter and I had our flight out that Saturday, the next day on Saturday morning. It was difficult throughout that day, just trying to, get everything planned. And,
of course.
I remember being on the phone with my grandmother and trying to figure out, okay, well, he's in the hospital. We need to get him to the funeral home. Which funeral home are we going to use? My grandmother really didn't know where to go. So I asked her, well, unfortunately, living in Florida and being in your 80s, you have a lot of friends that have passed away as well. So there were some recommendations for funeral homes. So I was able to contact some of the nicer funeral homes, get some arrangements. In the meantime, I was on the phone with my parents. They were in flight, so I knew they would get there soon. I was talking to my sister a couple of times. My sister, Danielle, was 25. She was in the Navy at that point. She was in Virginia, so she was home, at her home base. and she was still on active duty. So the issue was, because of COVID, there was a lockdown for all of military bases as well. So they were not going to, she had asked her commanding officer if she would be allowed to go to Florida for the funeral, given that it would be that week. And they told her no. And
my sister's also active duty military. So
yes.
I completely understand.
Right. And I mean, you know, it's not like it was a friend or a cousin, although, you know, it's very important. Obviously, it's her grandfather.
Right.
So my mom actually contacted the Red Cross and reached out to them and said, you know, how close knit our family is, and that our grandfather essentially was like, you know, not even just a grandfather, almost like our father. So, you know, to kind of put pressure to allow her to come. And they said, well, we can see what we can do. And they, you know, pushed it up the chain to see. So we were all awaiting a response from them. But, you know, Danielle kind of knew that she probably wasn't going to be able to. So I was trying to get a lot of feedback from her, you know, about what we should be doing, you know, what kind of funeral arrangements, and just kind of keeping her in the loop. You know, and just kind of sensing her out too, because obviously we were all going to be in Florida together, and she was going to be in Virginia if she wasn't going to be allowed to come. And I remember speaking to her. The last time was probably about 8 p.m. on that Friday evening. And then we packed up, we got ready to go, and we headed out to the airport. We actually had to take connecting flights. So we landed, I believe it was Atlanta, from JFK to Atlanta, and then we were going to Atlanta to Daytona. So when we landed in Atlanta, I was getting a whole bunch of text messages, a whole bunch of missed calls from my family. And I, you know, when we were able to land, I got back to them and I said, well, what's going on? You know, my fear was, you know, my grandfather just passed away the day before. Was my grandmother okay? You know, had something happened? And I knew, you know, other family members had come down, what was going on. So they said, well, you know, your grandmother was having a little bit of a panic attack, you know, thinking of everything, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it when you get here. I said, okay, well, as long as she's okay and everybody's there, you know, and I was reassured that everybody was fine. My mom's brothers, she has an older brother and a younger brother, both had gotten there as well, you know, so at least the family was already there to support her. So when I arrived, my two uncles actually came to pick us up at the airport. And I had asked about Danielle, and I said, well, did anybody hear about Danielle's status? Is she going to be able to come? Do we know if the Red Cross is going to allow her? And they said, well, we're not sure yet. You know, we haven't heard anything. I said, okay. So we get to the house, and then immediately when we get there, you know, my family kind of gathers and tells us to sit down. And then they inform us that on Friday evening at 11 p.m., my sister had been killed in a car accident.
Oh my God.
So, you know, like,
oh my God.
Sorry.
No, take your time. I've been sitting here trying not to mess up your story, because I've been sobbing for the last 5 minutes because I knew what was coming. It was wearing me. Yeah. So they told you.
Yeah, so they told us, and, so you know, at first, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. So they knew before, but they were not telling you
right,
until you got there.
So apparently what happened was the state troopers, because again, this happened in Virginia, so the state troopers that had found the scene of the accident had notified the military. The military sent, I guess, the military representative in Jersey to my parents' house in New Jersey. They weren't there. And just out of luck, my parents' next door neighbors saw the military uniforms at the door and informed them that my parents were in Florida. And they actually had given them the number. And then they contacted my parents down in Florida, and then they sent military representatives to my grandparents' house at that Saturday. So they had found out a few hours prior to us arriving, which is when they told me then at that point was why they were calling me frantically. And then they finally came to a mutual decision that it probably wasn't the best idea to tell me that kind of news when airport. I would have to take another flight.
Yeah.
So that's why they decided to wait till we got there. But and at first it didn't really register because the way I was told was, we lost Danielle. And I said, what do you mean you lost her? I said, yeah. And my immediate thought, not thinking that anything's going to happen to my 25-year-old sister was, oh my gosh, did she go AWOL? Did she try to come to Florida to come to the funeral? And now they don't know where she is. Is the military looking for her? And I was just confused. And then they obviously explained to me that no, she, was involved in a motor vehicle accident and that she didn't survive, that it was instantaneous, and that unfortunately she had passed away on the exact same day as my grandfather, just a few hours apart. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. There's not enough words. There's nothing.
We have another mutual family friend that had called Paul and I and had informed us, but the whole thing was orchestrated by your parents, fortunately, because they had decided that it was best, since you were traveling, not to tell you then. So right. We were also sitting on it because we knew, okay, we were told, but then we were told you can't say anything because, Sarah's still flying. So it was just a mind-blowing scenario.
Right. Really and, it was funny because it does come to mind that when I got to the airport in Daytona, I actually had received a text message from Charles just saying simply, I'm sorry to hear about your sister. And at first, again, not knowing anything. And I said, oh, well, do you know what's going on about? And at first I thought he was confused. And I said, no, well, actually, it's my grandfather that passed away. We're trying to see if my sister's able to come. And I thought that's what he was apologizing for, not knowing that he had already been told what had happened to my sister.
Well, I had a reflex action to reach out to you.
Right.
And it was after, of course, because my fingers were moving fast.
Right.
And then they were like, oh, no, you can't say anything. I'm like, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then, just dealing with, such an interesting time, to have to not only deal with 2 deaths in the family, on the same day, no less, but then having to do it during COVID.
Right.
Right.
So one, just dealing with the guilt that unfortunately my grandfather passed away alone in the hospital, which unfortunately most people have or have had family members pass away in the hospital alone because they weren't allowed visitors. They weren't allowed communication. Maybe they were able to see a family member through a video chat or on a phone call, but that was it. And sometimes for weeks, at least he was only in the hospital for a few days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, dealing with that and first, getting his funeral arranged and then Florida mandating at that point that all funeral services had to be limited to 10 people or less. Who do you pick and choose to come to the funeral? So right. we decided to just keep it the immediate family, the family that was there. And we told everyone, listen, nobody fly in, nobody come. We're going to do it just us. And then we'll decide what to do later on. And, people, obviously they understood because there was all these mandates, all these things going on that we just didn't have any control over. Right. And then, in the midst of figuring out my grandfather's service, then having to also figure out, okay, well, now what are we doing with Danielle? Because we told the military, obviously, we're all in Florida for my grandfather's funeral. We can't get to Virginia. Is there any way that we can have Danielle sent down to Florida so that we can have their funerals either at the same time or very close together, since all the family was already there?
Right.
And that was a nightmare in and of itself. because again, there was so many restrictions. So at first they were going to fly her down, and then the flights were canceled, and then there were restrictions, and it just got pushed back. Finally, there was some representatives from the Virginia offices that said, well, look, we're going to drive her down. So they actually drove her all the way from Virginia to Florida. And then they took her to the same funeral home as my grandfather. So we were able to have a small service for her there as well, where they did provide military services, and they did taps and the presentation of the flag, which was beautiful. So again, not quite the send-off that you would expect, to give your family member.
But it's a blessing that at least you were able to pull it off, because there are so many people that weren't either as vigilant or just having the ability to pull that together. It's one of the things that's so difficult about dealing with all of these types of real life issues in the middle of a pandemic, is that people are so justifiably, but so concerned and paranoid about catching, spreading, whatever the disease, that they kind of dehumanize situations. You know, I mean, you would think people would try to help more when you're in a situation like this, but fortunately, they did drive her down, so that facilitated and helped to some degree.
Yeah.
I guess my question at this point is, I know you have a really strong and close, tight family, and I know how much love there is there, but it still comes down to you as an individual. What did you turn to? What are the things that helped you process this and go home and be mommy and get back to being doctor and going back to work and getting back in life, so that you were not just consumed by it all?
And continue to help you, because there's no expiration date on grief, and that was just a year ago.
Right. I think it's come down to what it always has for me. It's my work, which is just medicine. Because it's not just a job, it's my life. So, and then also travel for me has always been, my kind of soul refresher, so to speak. So in terms of the medicine, early on in my career, in medical school, in residency, you learn very quickly, how to deal with your feelings, how to manage your grief, whether it's your own, whether it's the patients that you're seeing, because at any point in time, I may see, whether it was when I was in training and I was in the actual physical hospital, or, just today, going back and forth between patient rooms, I can enter a room and have to give the most horrible news to a person, whether they have end-stage cancer or, that some other lifelong disease that they're going to have. I have to give that diagnosis. And I have to be able to, empathize and sympathize with that particular person, and then walk out and almost like create a blank slate to walk into the next room where I might have to give the best news in the world. You're pregnant for the first time after trying for 5 years, or, the diabetes that you had is now cured. And so it's always been a fine line of managing the emotions and the grief, which sometimes, some people may say, the doctors are very cold and emotionless. And it's not that. It's just that's our training, where we know when to turn it on, when to turn it off. We know when to, how to manage our grief and our emotions. And I think going through what I went through and actually getting back to work, which was probably about a week or so after both the funerals occurred, it was very difficult. especially with my staff, because everybody wants to be supportive. And I was very grateful for that. But you don't necessarily want to talk about it right away.
Mm-hmm.
No. And you also don't want to break down in the middle of your day. But being in with my patients actually definitely helped, because I had patients that have lost loved ones. I had patients that were going through something at the time, and knowing that I was going through something, I'm not going to share my entire life with my patient, but at least I have more of that background, and I have more of that empathy to give. So it's more of an understanding of, well, not that I know exactly what you're going through, but I'm going through something myself very similar, and it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. And, trying to help them go away from the stigma that is, well, there's a timeline on grief.
Yep.
So that it's actually been a big help, because prior to this, I've never had this kind of grief before in my life. So trying to explain that to patients and telling them, look, I've went through something similar, and I know it's hard, and it's going to be hard every single holiday, every anniversary, and that's okay. Don't let other people tell you need to be put on a medication, you need to be put on an antidepressant, or you need to do anything that what you're comfortable with doing. You're kind of in the driver's seat. You let me know how you feel. Right. And I think it's kind of been a catharsis for me as well. Just being able to relate better with my patients. And then work is always great, because, you get those great happy moments throughout the day, and you say, okay, I remember why I'm back here. And, the other side has always been travel for me. I've always been a huge, traveler, and I've never been the type of person who, when they go on vacation, I can just lay on the beach or just stay at the resort. That's just not me.
So says your husband. It's so funny. He's
yes.
Like, I know there's going to be a list, and I better get up.
Right.
She'll just
to the chagrin of many of my travel companions, which is usually either family members or my very tight, close group of friends.
Right.
I'm usually the planner, myself and one of my other close friends, Chitra. When I say that there's itineraries for our trips, it's not a lie.
She's serious.
I am very serious.
They're
also sometimes they're laminated. Yep.
Yes, exactly. See, that's what I was about to say.
That is dedication.
They've got a total time schedule. Everything's laid out, and it looks like a wedding invitation. It's like, this is what we're going to do.
I mean, I just, I take my I would say, what am I trying to think of? From, let's say, Anthony Bourdain, right?
Yes.
Just coming out, going and exploring, you go to somebody else's country. If you're just going to stay at the resort and just sit by the pool, have you really explored that country? No, not at all. So I'm going to get out there. I'm going to try the food. I'm going to speak to the people. I want to go out where they go out. You're going to go to the tourist sites as well. You go to France, of course, you're going to go to the Eiffel Tower. But if that's all you do, you haven't seen France.
True. True.
What comes to mind is one of the big trips that we planned, that was one of the last trips my sister and I were on together. And we actually went to Peru and Ecuador. And we were there for 10 days, and we hiked Machu Picchu. So we did the Inca Trail. Yes. You start off, we took the train. We got there into Lima. We were there for about 2-3 days. We acclimated, because of the higher altitude, you have to acclimate.
It's no joke.
So first of all, Lima is a beautiful city. It is actually, and you wouldn't think it, but it actually has some of the populations and of the cities in the world, it actually has the most Michelin rated restaurants.
Wow.
That's weird.
Yeah. And you wouldn't think it. You would think New York, you would think Paris, maybe somewhere in Italy.
Beijing, something.
Right. No, Peru has actually some of the highest rated Michelin star restaurants, and it's the most. I think it has about 5 or 6.
Wow.
So obviously that was on our itinerary to hit up at least 2 of them.
How were they?
Oh, fantastic. It wasn't even a rest. It's just an experience.
Yeah.
These were like 6 or 7 courses. There was one restaurant that we went to where they actually did almost like for your dessert. It was almost like a Black Forest cake, but it was in the shape of an actual forest.
Oh.
And so it's like a tree with the dirt on the bottom.
Oh, wow.
All chocolate. And then there was like foam bubbles. It was impressive.
It was art.
I feel like,
oh my
art.
goodness, yes.
I feel like that was featured on Chef's Table or something. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Do you watch any of those like documentary or like those shows
Yes.
on Netflix? And
I'm addicted to the Food Network and Travel Channel.
I swear I saw a forest that was a dessert that was just like that. That's so cool.
It's fantastic.
That is cool.
And then I mean the trip to you get down to Cusco, which is where Machu Picchu is. You have to we took a train at 3:00 in the morning to get there to start our hike. The whole trail is 23.8 miles. We did the half day, the half trek. So it was 13 miles that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the 13 miles in one day, and you're going across the mountain ranges, you're going in and out of crevices, and it's just an amazing experience.
Oh, wow.
And of course, my sister, being in the Navy at that point, was like in her hiking boots and all the way in the front of the line.
Oh, yeah. She was
Leading the way.
Just leading the way. So, I mean, it was just an amazing experience. And I'm glad that I got to bring her along on that trip, because there were so many trips that I made sure she came with me on, even though she might have been a little younger or she maybe didn't have money. And I said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got you covered. Let's just go. And it was always great. I took her to Ireland. We went to Portugal and Spain. She was supposed to come to Iceland, but she had just gotten deployed at that point, so she wasn't able to come. Right. And then this amazing trip with Peru and Ecuador. And actually, we took one final trip, December 2019. We actually went to Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. And she was actually set to come with us. All the tickets were bought. And unfortunately, about 3 weeks before our trip, her ship announced, she was on the USS Bainbridge, her ship announced that they were coming home, but they were destined to go right back out to be a support for another ship that was stationed off the coast of Syria. So they were almost having to do backup or support for them. So they had to go right back out. And that she wouldn't be back until almost after Christmas. So
she must have been bummed.
Unfortunately, it was not to be, which looking back now, I wish she would have been able to come.
But you all spent some amazing quality time together.
Yeah, definitely.
You were tight. Very, very tight.
And she just loves my daughter, so to be able to share that with Olivia, who's my daughter, and just to, let her understand what her aunt was like, but also to bring that love of the travel that we all had, which bringing that into the mix, when it came time to do my sister's celebration of life service, which we did for her in August, this past August in 2020, we did a travel theme. So we got a huge map where we were able to mark off all the places that she had been. We had tables set up where every single table was a different country that she had been to. We had pictures of her in the different countries, the flags out. We had baked goods that kind of correlated with the color scheme. So again, it was all about the travel and, bringing that out there. And it's just going forward, obviously the travel is not going to stop because, like I said before, it's kind of cleansing for your soul, to be out there, having these great experiences and opening your mind, which unfortunately with the state of the way our country is, I feel like if more people traveled and
gained a
met
bigger
people that were not like them, of course, they would understand, which is why I love living in New York. Although New York has its own share of issues, but, being in such a culturally diverse place, you understand other people's, outlook on life, and their mentality.
Such a difference. It really does.
Of course. Yeah.
Because I am in a cultural wasteland down here in South Jersey. I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
And I
you have a backyard,
really miss
Charles.
New York.
I'm in Long Island. I have a backyard.
My old house, I had a big old backyard, and it was lovely. This house, not so much. But it's okay. Right. It's okay. I mean, it's a lovely place to be, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, there's so little diversity. I literally stopped a guy when I was coming home from the store the other day. He was walking his dog, and I pulled over in my car and stopped and said, "Hi, I have to introduce myself because every other day when I walk my dog, somebody stops me and says, 'Where's your little black dog?' And I have to bite my tongue so that I don't say, 'No, I'm sorry, that's the other black dog.'"
Oh, geez.
Because there are that few of us here, and they still can't tell us apart, and it wears me out. So in that aspect, I miss New York. Yes.
But that's why I want to have that experience where, you travel, you let go, you're in tune with nature, because, there's going to be hiking. There's going to be, I hiked up a volcano in Guatemala, what better way to help, kind of get a new start, a new beginning on things.
She's for real. She jumped out of planes.
Trips. I mean, can I get on
she's done everything.
And I must say, the funniest thing is, so it ended up being the Guatemala and Belize trip ended up being myself, my husband, and one of my very good friends, Dwayne. It ended up being the three of us. So for our 6-year wedding anniversary, we actually were hiking up an active volcano in Guatemala.
You crazy?
And we brought a little wooden 5 so that we could take a picture. For our 5th year anniversary, sorry. But a little wooden 5 so that we could take a picture on this volcano, where we also roasted marshmallows, by the way, because it was so hot.
With volcanic ash.
With volcanic ash, yes. Yes.
That must have been a unique taste sensation.
You know what? It heats up so quickly that the marshmallows just puff up, and you don't actually get that like sulfury kind of taste to them.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it was actually really cool. But yeah, so that's how I've been able to deal with, my grief or any stress in my life. Always to kind of get that, refreshing take on everything, and to say, okay, let's kind of recharge the batteries. Let's get out there. Let's meet people. Let's have new experiences, and then come back to, my everyday with kind of a new outlook.
Yeah.
Has it changed your relationship with your husband?
It has. The way my husband was brought up, he's Irish German. So it's just a cultural difference. Obviously, I'm Puerto Rican Italian. So, and I grew up more with the Puerto Rican side, but we're just just culturally very more affectionate group of people. Right. And just in terms of my family, and his family's not quite like that. They don't get me wrong. They're very loving, wonderful people.
They're sweet.
They're very sweet. It's just not the same type of affection and openness.
Right.
And I feel my husband had a little bit of that as well. And I feel like with everything that happened, he really showed his true colors, and he was very supportive. He was there 100% for my family. He, we've been together, going to be 8 years now. But, so he knew Danielle when, she was a teenager. Right. So it was like his little sister too. So, it's definitely been great to see, how much he's put into it, and, the support and the love that he's given me and the rest of the family with everything that we've gone through.
That's wonderful.
But it definitely has, it's definitely strengthened our relationship.
That's beautiful.
That's really beautiful. I love how both of what you cite as the things that have gotten you through are both having to do with expanding your perspective, helping people through your job, and meeting new people around the world and having new experiences. I feel like anytime I get depressed or lonely, it's because I've completely lost touch, lost connection, and hence why we're doing this podcast, because we're never as alone as we think we are, but it's so easy to forget that.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, there were plenty of times where, especially in the beginning, you just want to be left alone, and you just need a couple of days to recoup and, be one with yourself. But in order to kind of heal and have that healing process from head to toe, mentally, physically, spiritually, you definitely need to, find your outlet, whether it be, like you said, with me, it's the medicine and the travel and the helping people, or your arts or singing, or, whatever it may be. You definitely need that outlet. Because if you let it stay internal and you just let it eat away at you, it then becomes an external issue, and, your health starts to fail and you sink into this depression, and sometimes you can't get out of it, and it becomes a little scary.
You sound as about enlightened about all of this as anyone could possibly be.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're as settled as you are is inspiring.
I mean, there's still some bad days, but
it's really inspiring.
I'm going to blow you up just a little bit, because Laura, you want to talk about exploring and new experiences. This is a woman who has wedding pictures in a full wedding gown underwater.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So it was our honeymoon pictures. Yeah, we did a honeymoon underwater picture. Yes,
blew my mind. I was like, she did what?
So it wasn't the wedding dress I wore at my wedding, but yes, it was a blue, very chiffon type dress
with a long
that was very ethereal. Yes, yes.
Always wanted to do that. I may just do it without finding the guy. I'm just determined to do it. That is so awesome.
It was amazing. So yeah, I mean, our honeymoon was in Fiji. We did it a few months. So we got married in December, and we took our honeymoon in January. And I had been, when I was looking up things to do, places to go while we were in Fiji, things kept popping up with these like beautiful like underwater photography. I said, that'd be really fun. And the funny thing is, I'm not a great swimmer at all. So I was like, I might drown taking these pictures, but at least they'll look great.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But it actually worked out really well. I was in communication with the photographers prior to us getting there, and they said, no, we'll make you feel really comfortable. And, they just got these amazing, amazing photographs.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I if we can get one for the website, no, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I kind of want it.
No problem.
If you don't mind sharing, we'd love to have that with them. Because, what could be more unique? Well, sweetie, thank you for this.
Thank you.
This has been good. This has been very, very good. Your expressions, your understanding, I think, of the entire process, because it's one thing to go through grief. It's another one to have a true intellectual understanding of what the process is, and then actually be able to apply it.
Well, and I thank you guys for having this platform. To have these different stories being put out there and let people, essentially understand the different ways of grieving and how everybody tackles it differently. Mm-hmm. And that it's okay, if you don't grieve the same way others grieve. And it doesn't mean that if you're having fun or doing things or going out that you're over it. It's just your way of coping.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Absolutely.
I loved what you said earlier about, there's no time frame on grief. And I think that's also, it can't be understated enough, because I think there's a lot of pressure from society to move forward on their time frame, but it has to be on yours. And
right.
You're a great example of someone who's finding their way through. And I'm so grateful that you came on and were willing to share that with us.
Well,
Awesome.
Thank you both. It was a great experience.
I'm glad.
Send us that
Think
picture.
I'll get your daughter.
I definitely will. Don't worry.
That'll be great.
We try to include something from all of our guests, whether it's their favorite poem or a song or a picture that represents them, and so we're amassing quite a collection of beautiful art, and I think that would be really lovely.
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah. Well, like I was telling Charles, trying to get a personal picture of myself, that was a good one of a close-up was very difficult for me. So the one I sent him wasn't the greatest, but yes, I have a lot of travel photos that I would be more than happy to share, and you guys can pick whatever one you feel fits.
That'd be great.
Cool. And I'll
Thank
send
you
you
so
my
much.
schedule for your next trip so that I can crash it.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. I hope you're ready.
What is the
I'm
next
ready.
big trip? That of course is.
Well, based on
inquiring minds want to
COVID,
know.
unfortunately, it was supposed to be Australia. We were supposed to go to Australia last year, but unfortunately,
Way too
COVID
much
put a
time
damper
up
on
there.
them.
Yeah.
So my family and I were going to the Bahamas in May for my dad's birthday.
Oh, nice.
And then going forward, we'll see. We got to see what countries open up, because right now everything's still in lockdown.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, love to your
But,
family.
Thank you.
You know
Yeah,
what?
but
When
please,
we
if you
finish this, I want to talk to you separately, and we will do it another day. But talk to me more about this Bahama trip, because as you know, your dad and my husband have the same birthday. So
okay.
You're here. Our listeners are hearing a
is
new plan at work.
brewing,
Brewing
Love it.
travel plans.
Okay.
Give my best to Liv and Eric and everyone.
Of course. And
All
thank you
right.
guys. You guys have a wonderful day.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Conscious Compassion. We'd love to hear your input and to hear what you do to make it through.
You can reach us on our website at consciouscompassion.net. We've got some amazing interviews coming up that we can't wait for you to hear.
Until then, catch you next time. I'm Charles Gray.
And I'm Laura Darrell.
Conscious Compassion, where
Where sharing is caring.